to the channel and welcome to this game of Warhammer 40,000 3rd edition, in which we will see the Chaos Space Marines of the Wordbearers Legion up against the Eldar of Craftworld Biel-Tan. This is 1300 points aside of Take and Hold. On this long forgotten world there is a nexus of warp power, and the Wordbearers are out to find it and try to capture or taint its power. However, the Farseers of the Craftworld Biel-Tan have foreseen their coming and have arrived before them. So in game terms, what that means is there's one objective, and it has to be more than 24 inches from one of the table edges, more than 12 inches from the other table edge, and more than 12 inches from the short table edges. So I put it right in the middle of this 12-inch strip that then allows. And in essence, it's whoever controls that objective at the end of the game. The defender, that's the Eldar, can deploy any of their troops' choices on the table at the start of the game. Don't have to deploy all of them, but they must deploy at least one troop, and everything else then goes into reserves. For the attacker, the entire force will be coming on from their table edge on the first turn, so nothing is deployed straight away for the Wordbearers. The game lasts for a random number of turns, and whoever has an eligible unit closest to the objective at the end of the game wins. So the following units cannot claim the objective: immobilised vehicles or units of bikes, cavalry or infantry with more than 50% casualties. Those units cannot control the objective. Any other unit that is the closest to that objective will be in control of the objective. So first up, let's take a look at the Wordbearers. They will be the attackers, and to use the army that I'm going to be using, you'll need these two books. You need the 1999 version of Codex Chaos Space Marines, and you need Chapter Approved, which came out in 2001. The main reason for Chapter Approved is so that there is a data sheet for a Demon Prince in the Chaos Space Marines Codex, but they updated it in Chapter Approved, and it is slightly better. So they've got additional demon gifts and things like that. So it's just slightly better than the one that's in the standard Codex. So you could get away with just using Codex Chaos Space Marines, but you won't be able to use the Demon Prince in exactly the way that I'm using it in this game. And here we have my 1,300 points of Wordbearers. The HQ choice is the aforementioned Demon Prince. He has got Mark of Chaos Undivided, and he has a twin bolter. It's actually a really chunky bolter on this model. It's not a twin one, but I thought just giving him a standard bolter wouldn't justify the chunkiness of the weapon. So he's got a twin bolter. He has got Demon Armour, which is one of the demon gifts in the Chapter Approved, and that gives him a 3-up armour save as well as his 5-up invulnerable save. He's got a demon weapon which gives him +2 strength, and he's got Rune of Chaos, which ignores instant death. And he's also subject to things like monstrous creature, so enemy units can't take armour saves, and there's a whole bunch of things that go with that in the core rules. So that's the HQ choice. For elites, I've got a unit of Chaos Terminators. There's 5 of them. In there we've got a Heavy Flamer, there's 2 Combi Flamers and a Combi Melter. I think the Combi Melter is on the Champion. Yes, it is. The Champion has also got a power weapon, and all of the other Terminators have got power fists, except for one that's got a chain fist. For troops, we've got 4 5-man Chaos Space Marine units, and we've got 2 equipped for close combat that are identical. The Champion has got an icon. Champion in both squads have got an icon, rather. Plasma pistols and power weapons, and then the regular Marines have got bolt pistols and close combat weapons. Oh, I should have said the Terminators have got Mark of Chaos Undivided, or the Aspiring Champion has. The Aspiring Champions for all of the Chaos Space Marine squads have also got Mark of Chaos Undivided. The other 2 5-man squads, the Champion is just equipped as a standard Chaos Space Marine with a bolt gun, but in each squad there's also a heavy bolter. So 4 troops choices of Chaos Space Marines. Should also say, because it might come into it, it might not, all of the Chaos Space Marines have got frag and crack grenades. For the heavy support slot, we've got a Chaos Dreadnought with a twin-linked heavy bolter and a Dreadnought close combat weapon. And you've probably noticed the demons, so there will be demon summoning going on in this game. In the fast attack slot, we've got a unit of demonic beasts, so 9 Flamers of Tzeentch, and troops choices, we've got 2 demon packs. One is Nurgle, one's Khorne. So for Khorne we've got 8 Bloodletters, and for Nurgle we've got 7 Plague Bearers, because, you know, Nurgle, Khorne. So that makes just over 1,300 points of Chaos Space Marines. 1,300 points because that's how many points of Biel-Tan I've got that I can use. So the demons don't start on the table, they have to start in reserve, and they come on similar to regular reserves, but they arrive on the 5-inch blast template. And I'll explain a bit, but it's basically deep strike, similar to Terminators, the way they come in, and I'll explain how that works when it comes. Now, obviously, in the original version of 3rd edition, everything was on 25mm bases, not 32mm bases. And I have checked, you can just about get 9 32mm bases onto a 5-inch blast template. I think you'd struggle to do 10. That's not the reason I've taken 9. I've taken 9 because of Tzeentch. But yeah, you would struggle to get 10 32mm bases onto a 5-inch blast template. But anyway, that's that. Let's go and take a look at the Eldar. For the Eldar, I'm going to be using Codex Eldar, which came out in 1999, so the same year as the Chaos Codex, Chaos Space Marines Codex, and a year after 3rd edition was published. But I'm also going to be using the Craftworld Eldar supplement, which came out in the year 2000, so 1 year later. And this has got some interesting force organisational structures. So specifically for Biel-Tan, a lot of the aspect warriors count as troops choices when they normally wouldn't. So I'll explain that, how that works in my army in a second. But yeah, with each of the major craft worlds, so Eandon, Simhan, Biel-Tan, Ulthui, and Alatok are all in there, and they've got particular quirks that to reclassify troops and give you extra things that you can take, just to make them a bit more individualistic and linked to the narrative around the particular craft world. So it's really cool. And these 2 books were official Eldar rules until 2006? Yeah, 2006. Just off to the side of me I've got the screen with my timeline of the different codexes for 3rd, 4th and 5th edition. And the 4th edition Codex Eldar came out in 2006, which was halfway through 4th edition, and that lasted right the way through into 5th edition. No, 6th edition. That lasted through all of 5th edition. So yeah, these books were valid for half of 4th edition as well as 3rd edition. Right, let's have a look at the actual army. And here we have slightly over 1,300 points of Biel-Tan Eldar. And quick note, very quickly going through, HQ slots, we've got a Farseer with some Warlocks, more about those in a second, and I've also got Azerman, and then everything else, aspect warrior wise, with the exception of the Swooping Hawks, is troops choice for Biel-Tan. So the Warp Spiders are troops choice, the Dire Avengers are troops choices anyway, and the Fire Dragons are also troops choices. The Swooping Hawks retain their fast attack slot, and then we've got a dedicated transport in the form of a Wave Serpent. Right, first up we've got Azerman. He is a Phoenix Lord, and in the Codex there's a basic stat line for a Phoenix Lord, which then gets tweaked depending on which version of a Phoenix Lord you take. So there's extra details for Azerman, for Fugan, for Morgan Ra, Jane Zar, Baharoth and Karandras. For Azerman in particular, he gets a twin-linked Shuriken Catapult. He gets the Sword of Acer, which is a dire sword that, in addition to being a regular dire sword, can re-roll misses in combat. And a dire sword is quite a special weapon in that if you come up against an enemy model with more than one wound, and you inflict a hit with a dire sword, that enemy model must take a leadership test, and if it fails the leadership test, it's dead. So it kind of bypasses the upgrade I gave the Demon Prince that ignores instant death, but the upgrade on the Demon Prince ignores instant death for the purposes of being hit by a weapon whose strength is twice the model's toughness. This kind of bypasses that. So Azuman's kind of tasty, but he's also got Battle Fate, which makes Azuman's 3+ save an invulnerable save. So he's got a 3-up invulnerable save, and I'll talk about the 2 Dire Avengers Exarchs at the same time here, because all 3 of them, Azuman and the 2 Dire Avengers Exarchs, so this chap and this chap, they've all 3 of them got the Exarch powers Defend and Distract. Distract means if you're in base-to-base contact with an enemy model, you can reduce the amount of attacks they've got down to 0. Well, you reduce it by 1, which can take it down to 0. And Defend means if they fight last, then enemy models can only hit them on 6s, and that's in close combat. Right, so that is Azuman. One last thing about Azuman, that's the fine cast model, whereas a lot of the other models in this this army that you would think are metal, like the Warlocks, the Warp Spiders, the Swooping Hawks, the Fire Dragons, you'd think they would be metal. They are indeed metal, but Azuman, I'm afraid, is fine cast, not metal, which is annoying because the number of times I think I broke... Did I snap that sword when I bought it and was trying to paint it? I can't remember. Yeah, really don't like fine cast. Anyway, really sorry if that zooming in and out made you feel seasick. The Warlocks are metal, the Farseer is plastic, but moving on to the Farseer. So he's got a Singing Spear and a Shuriken Catapult. He's got a Ghost Helm. He's got Runes of Witnessing, Runes of Warding, so he gets all sorts of rerolls, and Spirit Stones. For Psychic Powers, I've given him Fortune, which he can cast on a friendly unit within 6 inches and allows them to reroll armor saves and cover saves. And he's got Guide, which again has got a 6-inch range, and a friendly unit can then reroll shooting hits. And if it's a weapon with a guess profile, you can reroll the scatter dice. So that's the Farseer, and more about that when we can actually come to use him. But to quickly differentiate between the Farseer's psychic powers and the Warlocks, the Farseer has to take a leadership test in order to use his psychic powers. The Warlocks get 1 psychic power each, but theirs is active all the time. Doesn't need a leadership test to do, but they can only have 1 each. So for the Warlocks, the one who is pointing the Shuriken pistol, he has got Enhance, which gives him and his unit +1 weapon skill and +1 initiative. The one with the spear has got Conceal, which gives him and his unit a 5+ cover save. And the one holding his Witchblade two-handed has got Destructor, which is basically a flamer attack at strength 5, AP 4, and uses the flame template. For the Dire Avengers, I'll come to the Warp Spiders in a moment. For the Dire Avengers, we've got a unit of 10, one of which is an Exarch, and a unit of 5, one of which is an Exarch, and Azuman will be joining the unit of 5. The Warp Spiders, we've obviously got a unit of 5. Their Death Spinners in this version of the Codex are rapid fire. The Exarch has got an extra Death Spinner, which makes his Assault 2 instead of rapid fire. And I've also given him Power Blades, which gives him +1 attack, and they also ignore armor saves because they're power weapons. And I've also given him Surprise Assault, which when he and his unit charges, they gain +2 attacks instead of 1. So really choppy in close combat. And they've also got Withdraw, so if the unit is in close combat at the end of the assault phase, they can fall back if you wish. Normal rules for falling back apply, including the crossfire rule, but the enemy unit may only make a 3-inch advance, 3-inch consolidate, they may not advance, and the warp spiders automatically regroup after they've made the withdrawal. Oh yeah, I should really tell you about what makes warp spiders. It's their warp jump generators. So in the movement phase they can move 12 inches and ignore all terrain. Obviously they can't finish in impassable terrain, but then if they want to they can make a second jump at the start of the assault phase, but if they do they can't charge. So we nominate the direction the squad will move, we roll 2d6 and move that many inches, but if I roll a double, one member of the squad dies, so they get sucked into the warp, or they're actually travelling through the warp when they make that move, and one of them gets devoured by the denizens of the warp and doesn't come out again. And also with them having warp jump generators, they advance and fall back 3d6 inches, ignoring all terrain. For the swooping hawks, they are jump infantry, so they move 12 inches, and yeah, just standard jump infantry as per the rule book. But also they can always deep strike even if the mission says they can't, and they've got a swooping hawk grenade pack which they can use when they arrive from deep strike, and basically that means when they arrive from deep strike they can drop a large ordnance template anywhere on the table which then scatters, and yeah, you then work out damage accordingly. So models partially under a hit on a 4+, models completely under a hit, etc, etc. So yeah, basically dropping bombs as they come from deep strike. I've not given the Exarch any Exarch powers because of points, but yeah, 5 swooping hawks, one of which is an Exarch. Finally, the unit of 5 fire dragons. So there is an Exarch in there with an Exarch fire pike, and other than that they're standard as they come. I've given the Exarch the tank hunter Exarch power, Exarch upgrade, Exarch power, upgrade, Exarch power. That allows the Exarch to reroll any armor penetration rolls for attacks, whether shooting or close combat, against targets with an armor value. So it's only really going to come in handy against that Dreadnought, but is what I tend to give him whenever I take him, so that one so I don't forget it. The Wave Serpent, I'm really pleased with this because of all those Spirit Stones that are painted. It has obviously got Spirit Stones as well. It's got all of the upgrades basically, so it's got Vectored Engines, Star Engines, Spirit Stones and a Crystal Targeting Matrix. And armament wise it's got a Shuriken Cannon in the bottom of the hull and a twin-linked Shuriken Cannon in the turret. So that's the Eldar, and the last thing to say is everything with the exception of the vehicle has got the Fleet of Foot special rule, which means it's kind of like modern day advance. So in the shooting phase, instead of shooting, you can roll a d6 and they can move that many extra inches instead of shooting. Right, let's get on with the game. The Eldar are deployed, so we've deployed the Dire Avengers, both squads, onto the table along with the Warp Spiders. Those are all the troops' choices except for the Fire Dragons. The Fire Dragons and the command group of the Farseer and the Warlocks are deployed inside the Wave Serpent, so we'll come on with the Wave Serpent when that's allowed to come on as reserves. And the Swooping Hawks are obviously deployed in Deep Strike. So we've got a little bit of cover by this fallen tree. So yep, that's the deployment for the Eldar. And then you go straight into the first turn with the attacker, so there's no roll off, the attacker automatically gets the first turn. So the word bearers have moved on, everything just simply moves onto the table. Now it does say moves its entire force, but because this mission uses Deep Strike, then there are things in Deep Strike. So the Terminators are in Deep Strike, and obviously the Demons have to start in Deep Strike. So everything that hasn't got Deep Strike is on the table. So here we've got one of the units of Chaos Space Marines, and because it moved on, the Heavy Bolter cannot fire because it's heavy weapon and they moved, and the rapid fire weapons can't fire either because they moved, so they've only got a 12-inch range when they move. Then in the centre we've got the 2 units of Close Combat Chaos Space Marines along with the Demon Prince, and then we've got the Dreadnought along with the other unit of ranged Chaos Space Marines. Again, heavy bolter cannot fire. So the only thing that can fire is the Dreadnought, because the Dreadnought can move up to 6 inches and still fire 2 weapon systems. But because it's a Chaos Dreadnought, it's got the Fire Frenzy special rule. So before it fires, I have to roll a d6, and I'm hoping for a 2 or a 5, otherwise bad stuff will happen. Well, bad stuff will definitely happen on a 6. Let's see. That's a 2, so it can fire normally. If I was to roll a 1, it would be Blood Rage, and instead of shooting, the Dreadnought would move d6 inches forwards. And if it was a 6, it would be Fire Frenzy, and it shoots at the closest thing, friend or foe, twice. So yeah, 2, it can just shoot normally. So we've got a nice line of sight down there to the large Dire Avenger squad. So it's a twin-linked heavy bolter with ballistic skill 4, so we'll hit on 3s. That's only 1 hit, but it's twin-linked, so we can re-roll the 2 misses. 2 hits, strength 5, toughness 3, so wounding on 2s, but we'll kill on 2s because it's AP 4, so we'll cut straight through a Dire Avenger's armour, unless I take it on the Exarch. There's a 1 and a 6, so I think for now I'm just going to say one of the Dire Avengers is... No, I won't. I will take it on the Exarch. Yep, still trying to get my brain into 3rd edition mode, because in this edition a 3+ save is a 3+ save, unless you're shooting at something and you've got AP 3 or above. So with AP 4, this is going to be the full 3-up armour save. That's a 2, so the Exarch is dead. So that's the end of turn 1 for the Wordbearers, into turn 1 for the Eldar. This is actually the end of the Eldar turn. Azaman told his companions to take cover, so he and his entourage have moved over into the cover to their left. The other unit of Dire Avengers, fleet of footed, ran back a total of 9 inches. We rolled a 3 for the run move, and the Warp Spiders have warp jumped over here behind this rock. Azaman knows these foes of old, and knows right now, until their reinforcements arrived, the best thing to do is take cover and keep out of range. There was nowhere really I could get this large unit of Dire Avengers into cover because of that fire lane going through from the Dreadnought. So into Wordbearers, turn 2, and now reinforcements can start arriving for both sides. So I'm going to start by rolling to see if the Terminators can come in, because Terminators are just standard reserves. So in this turn, while we turn 2, they'll need a 4+ to come onto the table. So the Terminators can come in, but the demons we don't roll for the demons arriving until the assault phase. So the Terminators are dropping in almost on top of that objective. Can't see any restrictions as to how close they can come into an enemy unit, unlike in more recent editions where they have to be 9 inches away, more than 9 inches away. So we place the 5-inch blast template, and then we roll to scatter. And just to clarify, these large rocks are not impassable per se, so you can move up and over them. Because I think there's something about if something that's deep striking in or teleporting in teleports into impassable terrain, then they're destroyed. So we place the template and we roll for scatter, and it's coming this way towards the edge of the table. 2d6 inches. 9 inches, so that moved the scatter dice, was facing that way. 9 inches, we move the centre of the template. And that's about as close to the edge of the table as it's possible to get without it actually going off the table. So now the Terminators deploy anywhere on top of that template. They can't move or assault, but they can still shoot, and there's quite a lot of flamers in that squad. And the Terminators end up looking something like this. And the remaining moves for the Wordbearers, pretty much everything except for this squad over on their left with the heavy bolter has moved. So this one squad has stayed still, so that the heavy bolter might have a chance to shoot over at the Dire Avengers. Although I think they're going to be out of range, because it's only 36-inch range and you're not allowed to re-measure. But yeah, all the other squads have moved forward, they're 6 inches. Into the shooting phase, and the heavy bolter is indeed in range, just as the front rank of the Dire Avengers is in range. So we will get 3 shots hitting on 3s. That's only 1 hit. This one is not twin linked, it's just a single heavy bolter. and will wound on a 2+, and that's a 1, so no wounds inflicted from the heavy bolter. Next up we've got the Terminators shooting in. Now there are 2 combi flamers over this side, so these 2 Terminators on the right side of the squad, they've got combi flamers, which means they can fire a once per game flamer shot, but we've got a heavy flamer here towards the front, and you place the template and basically just these 2 Dire Avengers here in the bottom right of the unit are not going to be under the template. So we're going to fire the heavy flamer in, and the rest of the Terminators will fire their bolt guns. So there's 7 Dire Avengers under the template for the heavy flamer, and these hit automatically with no cover save, and AP 4, so it will cut straight through their 4+ armour. So we're just basically rolling for the wounds. So at strength 5, AP 4, strength 5 versus toughness 3, this will basically kill a model on a 2+. So there's one that survives, but that will just leave three models left in the unit. Then we've got 4 bolt guns, because all of the other Terminators without the heavy flamers have got combi weapons, so these are just standard bolt guns effectively. So this will be 4 shots hitting on 3s, and that is 3 hits, 1 miss. Strength 4, toughness 3 will wound on 3s. That's 2 wounds. These are AP 5, so the Dire Avengers will get their 4+ armour saves. And that's 2 more dead Dire Avengers. And that 1 remaining Dire Avenger now needs to take a leadership test, because definitely more than 25% casualties from a round of shooting, and this will be -1 to the leadership because it's below half its starting strength. So leadership 9 becomes leadership 8, and that's a pass on a 3. Now there's only 1 model left in the unit, so at the start of each turn he will have to take a leadership test, and if he passes he can carry on fighting, but if he fails the rules say he has an outbreak of common sense and will try to flee off the table. We're now at the start of the assault phase, and now we need to test to see if any of the demons come in. So it's a standard reserves roll, so on turn 2 we need a 4+, but different demons get bonuses to that on particular circumstances. So the Plague Bearers, they will get +1 to the roll because enemy models were slain during the turn. The Khorne Bloodletters will get +1 to the roll because there are Chaos troops, friendly troops, within 6 inches of enemy models, so kind of a shame that that Dire Avenger is still alive. And the Tzeentch Flamers will get no bonuses because they get a bonus if a psychic power has gone off, and there's been no psychic powers so far. So I'm going to roll for each one. Hopefully you can tell which is which from the dice. So that's a 2 for the Plague Bearers, a 5 for the Flamers, and a 5 for the Bloodletters. So it's getting progressively worse for the Eldar. 17 demons are about to come in and make their life really miserable, or even more miserable than it already was. Power of this warp node definitely strong here. And in the editing I just had a nasty thought, thinking, have I done this summoning right? And no, I did it wrong, but too much happened since to be able to go back and rectify it. So what I should have done was place the 5-inch blast template touching a friendly model, not place it anywhere I liked. So I did that bit wrong. You place it so the template is touching a friendly model, and then you roll for scatter. First up we're rolling for the Flamers. So I've placed the template, let's see if it scatters. Yes, it does scatter, and it's coming backwards 12 inches. Okay, that might stay on the table. Yes, it does just, but those Flamers definitely out of position for where they wanted to be, but it's going to be a bit of a sigh of relief to the elves. Right, let's place the Flamers, and as I say, 9 Flamers does just fit on top of that 5-inch blast template. There we go, you see. Only just, but they are all on there. You'd struggle to get a 10th one on. And I was toying with deploying the Bloodletters down here. but I think it makes more sense to again try and put them over here, because this is the site of where the blood was spilled. So yeah, let's try deploying the blood letters in that hole. And that's not me just trying repeatedly to get a unit in there. This is me just trying to play the scenario out as if we were word bearers. And it's getting a bit crowded around here, so I've actually moved this template a bit further up. So let's see if it scatters. No, that's a hit. The blood letters fall down exactly there. And indeed, there they are. And demons can assault in the turn in which they arrive. So those blood letters are now going to launch an assault against Azuman and the Dire Avengers. Right, now the Flamers, they are demonic beasts. So the rules say they count as cavalry. So they could now assault the warp spiders, because cavalry can assault 12 inches instead of 6. However, that doesn't feel very flamery to me. I think flamers prefer to do what they do best, and that's fire flames. Fire flames? Shoot flames? You get the idea. So the flamers will not be assaulting the warp spiders. However, bloodletters very much assaulting the Eldar. So my plan to use dice to illustrate attacks and things has gone slightly awry, because Azuman is initiative 7, so can't really use a d6 to illustrate his attacks. But ordinarily he would fight first, 3 attacks at strength 7, and the Dire Avengers Exarch is also in base-to-base contact, so he will get 2 attacks base at initiative 6, plus an extra attack because he's got a pistol and a power weapon. And then we've got 4 Dire Avengers who are not in base-to-base, so they'll get 1 attack each at initiative 5. I don't know if you can see those white dots very clearly on that green background. I know Dire Avengers are blue, but it's a Bealtan army. Bealtan are green. And then the Khorne Bloodletters, we've got 4 in base-to-base. They get 2 attacks each at initiative 4. And they charge, so they get an extra attack, and then there's 4 not in base-to-base. Now, I was thinking about using the defend ability and distract abilities, but it seems a bit pointless because the Eldar are going to hit the bloodletters before the bloodletters hit the Eldar. So I think we're just going to go straight forward and just use their attacks. Yeah, so we will use distract, because you still fight at your regular initiative if you do that. It's defend that lowers your initiative to fighting last. So distract is -1 attack to enemy models in base-to-base contact. So basically that entire front row of bloodletters are going to lose their extra attacks for charging because they are distracted. No, I take it back. 1 model in base-to-base will lose 1 attack. So Azuman can pick 1 model to be reduced by 1 attack, and the Exarch can pick 1 model to be reduced to 1 attack. Looking at that angle, that bloodletter is not in base-to-base contact at all. There's only 3 of them in base-to-base contact. Right, so upon revisions, it looks like this. 3 are in base-to-base contact, get 2 attacks each at initiative 4, this is the bloodletters, and 1 of them will get an extra attack for charging. The other 2 that are in base-to-base contact, their extra attack is cancelled out by distract. So then we've got 5 that are not in base-to-base, so we'll get 1 attack each. Right, let's do Azuman first, because he's initiative 7. So Azuman gets 3 attacks, weapon skill 6 against weapon skill 4 for the bloodletters, so this will hit on 3s. And that's 2 hits, but we can re-roll this 2, because that's what Azuman does. His Sword of Azure re-rolls misses in close combat. Where's that gone? Onto the floor, hang on. So here's the reroll. That's still a miss. Strength 4 against toughness 4, so wounding on 4s. Unfortunately, he doesn't reroll to wound. So that's no wounds from Azuman. I'll be honest, that's really quite disappointing. Next we've got the Dire Avengers Exarch. He gets 3 attacks, hitting on 3s. And that's 2 misses. Dear me, these green dice not rolling well. Strength 3, toughness 4, wounding on a 5. That is a wound, and it is a power weapon, so would ordinarily cut straight through armour, but demons have got an invulnerable save of a 5+. Which saves. Man, these Eldar cannot catch a break. Then the 4 regular Dire Avengers, who are within 2 inches of an enemy model, will get 1 attack each, weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 4, so hitting on 4s. That's 3 hits, and will wound on 5s. That's 3 1s. Right, so when I saw that the Eldar are a lot higher initiative than the Bloodletters, I thought, oh, they've got a chance here, they've got this, especially with Azuman. No. Right, Bloodletters. So because the Bloodletters targets have got different weapon skills, I've had to divide up the attacks. So these are the attacks going into Azuman, which will hit on 4s, because weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 6, still hits on 4s. That is only 3 hits. Demon packs are strength 4, but because this is a demon pack of Khorne, i.e. Bloodletters, they are +1 strength, so they're strength 5. Azuman is toughness 4, so this will wound on 3s. And that's no wounds. So there you go, all's fair in love, war and bloodletting apparently. Going to be a draw at this rate. And then the other attacks going into the Exarch will hit on 4s, weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 5. All of those hit. Strength 5, toughness 3 will wound on 2s. All of those wound. So the Exarch will get to make his 3+ armour save against these, because Bloodletters weapons don't seem to be special in any way. They're not power weapons or anything. So, and there is 1 fail. So that will kill the Exarch. I've now got to try and fish the Exarch out of that mess with his long spear and with all those long swords and stuff. So in the end, what I thought would be a washout one way or the other, yeah, it turned out to be a lot more closely fought than I thought it would be. But the Bloodletters did win. They inflicted a single solitary wound on the Eldar. So the Eldar now are the losers, so they need to make a leadership test. Now, they are outnumbered. So Azuman's leadership is 10, will be reduced to 9 because they are outnumbered. So 9 or less, that's a 5, so they stand firm. So there's no tiebreaker to do, but both sides do have models that are not engaged. So now we need to do a roll-off to see who gets to move their unengaged models first. And that's still a tie, so re-roll. The Eldar will move their unengaged models first, and it looks like that. So now I need to see if I can move any Bloodletters to see if they can get into base-to-base contact, but they will have to move around this object here, this objective, because it's supposed to be a terrain feature. No, they can't move any more models into base-to-base contact because of terrain. So that is the end of quite a brutal turn for the word bearers. Does the Wave Serpent arrive? No, needed a 4, that's a 3. Do the Swooping Hawks arrive? No, that's a 1. And also at the start of the turn, does this brave lone Dire Avenger manage to stay on the battlefield? So leadership test, that's a pass on a 7. He's leadership 9, so it's just a standard leadership test. So he will stay around to fight. In the movement phase, Azuman and the Dire Avengers still very much locked up in combat, so can't move. This Dire Avenger, all by himself, turns on the spot to try and put some shuriken fire into these flamers. Now, if this was 4th edition, he'd have to take a leadership test to do this, because the Terminators are closer. But that rule didn't exist in 3rd edition. And then, likewise, the Warp Spiders have swiveled on the spot, so don't count as moving. And they will be shooting in at the flamers as well, so you can swivel on the spot and still get your maximum effect from your heavy weapons and your rapid fire weapons. Pretty sure that's the case. I'm just going to double check that now because I'm doubting myself. Yep, I was right. So it says in the rules that they stayed stationary effectively in the movement phase, and they turned face in the shooting phase, so it's not classed as movement, so they can shoot with full effect. We'll start with the Dire Avenger. The Avenger Shuriken Catapult is only a 12-inch range in this edition, and it's 2 shots, it's Assault 2, and will hit on 3s. 1 hit, Strength 4, Toughness 4, wounding on 4s. That is a wound. These are AP 5, but Demons have got a 5 up invulnerable save. That's a fail, so 1 demon will fall. Then the Warp Spider gets 2 shots with his twin-linked, what are they called? Web spinners? Death spinners, and they're not twin-linked. Give him in an extra one just makes it an assault weapon rather than a rapid-fire weapon. So 2 shots, his ballistic skill is 5, so we'll hit on 2s. And that's 2 1s. So it's a shame they're not twin-linked. Right, now then, the Death Spinners on the other Warp Spiders are 12 inches rapid fire. Now I need to check this, because does rapid fire half the range? No, it doesn't half the range. I was just wondering, because I've been looking at the Tau Codex recently, because I want to get a Tau army, and their rapid fire weapons are 30-inch range. So I didn't know if it halved, and obviously these are only 12-inch range in the first place, but if they stayed still, the rules say you can fire 2 shots add up to 12 inches, or 1 shot at its maximum range. So the maximum range on these is 12 inches, but they stayed still, so they can fire 2 shots at 12-inch range, and the flamers are within 12 inches. So these will hit on 3s. And that's slightly better, looks like 3 misses. 5 hits, strength 6 against toughness 4, wounding on 2s. That's only 1 failed wound, so 4 wounds go through. 4 5-up invulnerable saves. And all of those have failed, so that's 4 more dead flamers. So the flamers will now have to take a leadership test because they've lost 25% or more casualties, or more than 25% casualties. And they're also at half the starting strength of the unit, so their leadership of 10 is down to leadership 9. That's an 11, so the flamers will have to fall back 2d6 inches, and they're perilously close to the edge of the table. 9 inches, so they will get to the edge of the table, at which point they can make a last chance to regroup move, which is something I forgot in the Orcs against the Iron Warriors game, when the, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that game, the Storm Boys got to the edge of the table and went straight off. They're not supposed to do that, they're supposed to stop at the edge, and they get one last chance to make a regroup roll. Nope, you can only attempt to regroup as long as none of the usual restrictions apply, and one of those restrictions is the unit is above 50% of its starting strength, which it isn't, so the flamers are gone. So those flamers literally did nothing. They simply appeared and then got shot to pieces by 1 Dire Avenger and a bunch of Warp Spiders. Okay, well that will be the end of the Eldar turn 2, so going into turn 3. So you will have seen by now the cock-up from the summoning of the demons. So what should have happened was I would have placed the template here for, well, here actually, for the flames coming in, and that would have scattered straight off the table. I would then have placed the template in the same place for the bloodletters, and they came in on target. So what would have happened was I'd have charged that last remaining Dire Avenger with the bloodletter, and they would probably have killed it off, because they did kill the Exarch. And then those bloodletters would not be there, they would still be intact, and the Warp Spiders would probably have moved, because they would have had to move in order to then shoot at the Terminators, so that's what they would have done. But, like I say, too much has happened to go back and change it now, so we're going to carry on as is, but I will make sure I get it right in future, because we've still got Plague Bearers to summon in. Right, let's get on with Word Bearers turn 3. We are at the end of the Word Bearers movement phase, and basically everything on this side of the table has moved its full 6 inches. So there won't be any shooting again this turn from here, because the only thing that could shoot would be the Dreadnought, and it doesn't have any eligible targets in range or line of sight. Round this side, and some umming and ahhing about what to do with the Terminators, and in the end I elected to keep them still. So in the shooting phase, they will be able to rapid fire with their bolt guns over into the Warp Spiders, and then they can still assault the Dire Avenger, except they can't because they'll have stayed still to fire their bolt guns. Short rethink coming up. The rethink has been rethunked, and the Terminators are spurning the last remaining Dire Avenger. It's obviously no threat, whereas these Warp Spiders are very much more of a threat. So they have moved their 6 inches, and there are assault weapons attached to their combi weapons. And there's also the Heavy Flamer. And Terminators can move and fire heavy weapons. So that's what we've done instead. Into the shooting phase. Mistakes were made, because you can't pre-measure in this game. The Warp Spiders are out of Flamer range. So we'll have to rely on the 2 combi melters to do a bit of damage to the Warp Spiders, who will get a cover save. So 2 once per turn melter shots coming in. I may regret this, depending on where the Wave Serpent comes in. Anyway, that's a problem for later. Hitting on 3s, both hit on 5s, and will, in theory, kill on 2s, but they will get a cover save. That's a 3 and a 5, so they will get cover saves now of 5+, I think. They're behind a log. A log of 5 up or a 6 up? Let's check the book. Logs are a 5 up cover save. So 1 success, 1 fail, so 1 Warp Spider will die. And I think it makes sense to take the one that's closest. And now at the start of the assault phase, we roll to see if the Plague Bearers come in. So this turn it will be a 3+, but because an enemy model has been killed, it will be +1 to that, so it'll be a 2+. And that's a 1. So the Plague Bearers still very much being grumpy that the Tzeentch Demons came in first, I think. Right, because we moved and fired assault weapons with the Terminators, because melter guns and flamers are classed as, although we didn't fire the flamers, but the melter guns are classed as assault. We can still launch an assault into the Dire Avenger, because it's still within 6 inches. Okay, it looks like this. So the Dire Avenger will get 1 attack at initiative 5, and then there is a Terminator in base-to-base contact, and he charged, so he gets 2 attacks base, plus 1 attack for charging, but he's got a Power Fist. So he effectively fights last, effectively at initiative 1, and then there's 2 other Terminators within 2 inches, and again, so they'll get 1 attack each, but again, they've got Power Fists, so we'll be fighting last. So there's a very, albeit extremely unlikely, scenario in which the Dire Avenger survives this. So we'll start by doing his 1 attack, which is weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 4, so hitting on 4s. So that's a good start for him. He has at least hit. And then he is strength 3 against toughness 4, so winning on a 5. That's a 1. And his chances of survival have just drastically diminished, because if he could have killed that Terminator at the front, you have to remove casualties from base to base first. Yeah, it would have substantially reduced the amount of attacks coming in. Speaking of which, so 5 attacks of weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 4, hitting on 4s, and these could all miss. Only 1 missed. These are strength 8, because strength 4, but Power Fist doubles the strength to strength 8, so very much killing on 2s, because Dire Avengers do not have an invulnerable save. And, yep, although only 1 of them failed to wound, but yeah, that Dire Avenger very much pounded into the ground. And then, because these are Terminators, they can only consolidate after winning a fight. They can't advance, so they can only move up to 3 inches. So they've moved up to 3 inches towards the objective. And that will be the end. Oh no, there's that ongoing combat that shouldn't really be ongoing, shouldn't really have happened at all, but it is going on, so we are going to do it. You get the idea. So in this ongoing combat, the Dire Avengers piling in to get more models into base to base at the end of the last combat, probably not the best thing they could have done, because it just means they're now going to get more attacks back from the Bloodletters. Bloodletters get 2 attacks each, Dire Avengers only get 1. And in dice it looks a bit like this. So Azuman's in the middle, and he gets 3 attacks at initiative 7. He's in base to base with a Bloodletter who reduces one of his attacks or has one of his attacks eliminated because of distract, so that bloodletter is only fighting back with a single attack. But then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 Dire Avengers in base-to-base contact with bloodletters. Those bloodletters will all get their 2 attacks back. And then we've got 3 bloodletters who are not in base-to-base contact, so we'll get 1 attack. But again, all of the Eldar will get to fight first because they've got higher initiative. Let's start with Azaman, see if he can do better than last time. So 3 attacks will hit on 3s. And that's 2 hits, re-rolling because that's what he does with his sword. That is 3 hits. Now, can he actually wound? Wounding on 4s. He wounds once. The bloodletter will get a 5+ invulnerable save, which he fails, so that's a bloodletter dead. Then we get the Dire Avengers. 4 attacks will hit on 4s, because weapon skill 4 versus weapon skill 4. And that's 3 hits. These will wound on 5s, because they're only strength 3 against toughness 4. That is 2 wounds, 2 5-up saves, not necessarily invulnerable. Make one fail one, so that's a dead bloodletter. So that has reduced the number of attacks coming back in, and all of these are just simply going to go into the Dire Avengers rather than Azaman. So these will hit on 4s because the same weapon skill. And that's only 3 hits. And we'll wound on 5s. Sorry, 3s. Because strength... no, 2s. Strength 5 against toughness 3. Wounding on 2s. That is 3 wounds. So these will be 4-up armor saves. Because, again, can't find anything that says bloodletter's weapons are special. So that's 2 dead Dire Avengers, and it looks like this. I took the 2 Dire Avengers off at the periphery, so that's 2 dead apiece, so it's a draw. So now we need to do a tiebreaker roll. The Eldar win, 5 to a 4. So the bloodletters need to make a leadership test. They are leadership 10, there's no modifiers to this. That is an 8, so they stick around and fight. The Eldar do have models that are not in base-to-base contact, as do the bloodletters, so we need to do a roll-off to see who moves first. It's just Azaman who isn't currently in base-to-base contact with an enemy model. The Eldar will move first, so I move Azaman into base-to-base contact with an enemy model, one that is not already engaged. And then we have to move bloodletters. But again, I think bloodletters are going to struggle. That one could probably squeeze around there to get into contact with that Dire Avenger. But otherwise, that's an ongoing combat. Right, that's the end of Wordbearer's turn 3. Moving into Eldar turn 3. Starting things off with the reserves. Does the Wave Serpent come in on a 3+? Yes, it does. Do the Swooping Hawks come in on a 3+? No, they don't. We're at the end of the Eldar movement phase, and the Wave Serpent did a power slide onto the table, and then the Fire Dragons, the Warlocks, and the Farseer, no, that's the Farseer there, got out of the back. So the access port at the Wave Serpent is at the back, so it's come on 6 inches basically, swiveled on the spot because it can do a pivot, and then everything has been pooped out the back hatch. Where else does poop come from? The warp spiders have warp jumped over the rock and are just outside of that melee. The plan is Fire Dragons take out Terminators, warp spiders charge in and help the Dire Avengers finish off the bloodletters. So it's Operation Clear the Line. That's the plan. Now obviously, ideally, I would want the Farseer to use Guide on the Fire Dragons to better their chances of hitting, but you use Guide at the start of the Eldar turn, and he wasn't on the table at the start of the Eldar turn, so I'm interpreting that to be can't use Guide. Right, so let's move into the rest of the shooting, because technically I think the Warp Spiders could shoot at the Terminators as well before they go charging into the Bloodletters, but I think the Fire Dragons have got a much better chance of doing it first, so let's do them first. Right, so starting things off with the fire dragons. Regular fire dragons will hit on 3 with their fusion guns, which are 1 shot each. That's 1 miss. Strength 6, toughness 4, winning on 2s. All 3 wound. Now these are AP1, so would ordinarily cut through Terminator plate, but I remember this time Terminators have got a 5-up and vulnerable save. One of them survives, so 2 dead Terminators. So far so good as far as the Eldar are concerned. And then 1 shot from the Exarch will hit on a 2. That's a hit. Will wound on a 2. That is a wound. 5-up and vulnerable save. Saves. So 2 dead Terminators. Gotta be honest, was hoping for and expecting more. The Farseer and the Warlock with the Singing Spear both have Singing Spears and can throw them, and they can actually throw them through the Fire Dragons, because in this edition your own troops do not block line of sight unless it's a vehicle. So the Farseer will hit on a 2, which is a 1, and the Warlock will hit on a 3, which is a 4. And Singing Spears always wound on a 2+ regardless of toughness, unless it's a vehicle, which it isn't, it's Terminator. So that is a wound, but the Terminators will get their 2-up armor save. That's a 4, so that's a save. And there are 2 Shuriken pistols in there from the other 2 Warlocks, hitting on 3s, both hit. Winning on 4s because strength 4, toughness 4. Both wound, again, 2-up armor saves. Pass them both on 2s. And the Wave Serpent can fire one of its weapon systems after moving, so we'll fire the twin-linked turret weapon, which I glued in place, so I can't swivel the turret on this model, sorry. But twin-linked shuriken cannon is heavy 3, so 3 shots, re-rolling, hitting on 3s, but everything hit. Strength 5, toughness 4, winning on 3s, everything wounds. AP 5, so again 2-up armor saves and saves them all. So these Terminators, when you don't modify their armor save, really quite resilient. And then we will do the Warp Spiders, but I will just double check that if you fire an assault weapon at one target, you're then allowed to charge a different one. That's not what I did earlier with the Terminators. They fired assault weapons at the Warp Spiders and then charge the Dire Avenger. So I'll just double check that I've done that right. Yep, I can't see anything that says you can't fire assault weapons at one target and then charge another. That said, yeah, it only says you can't, the Warp Spiders, with the exception of the Exarch, I say X-Files, with the exception of the Exarch, their weapons are rapid fire, and if you stay still to fire rapid fire weapons, you can't then charge. So they've obviously not stayed still, so they could now fire rapid fire weapons, but at 1 shot each at 12-inch range. The assault weapon from the Exarch can still fire. This is something I need to get straight in my own head. Let's do some more reading, because I want to make sure that I'm doing this right for future reference. Right, after much more reading, so I've been through the shooting rules in the 3rd edition core book, I've been through the Q&A section in chapter approved, and I've been through the shooting and assault section in 4th edition. And 4th edition is partly where the confusion lay, because it does specifically say in 4th edition that you can't shoot at one target and then charge another, you can only charge the unit you shot at. It also says in 4th edition, and I think this is the rule I'm going to apply here, or the principle that I'm going to apply here, if you fired a rapid fire weapon you can't charge. And I think that's the spirit of it. So on that basis, I'm not going to fire with the Warp Spiders, they're just going to charge in the assault phase. So that is all of the shooting, which means the Terminators, the Chaos Terminators, now need to take a leadership test. So this is part of the reason why I've been having that constant inner battle with myself between 3rd edition or 4th edition. The 4th edition rules are just that bit clearer. but on the whole I prefer 3rd edition. Anyway, leadership value of the Chaos Terminators. Should have looked that up before I started the camera, really, shouldn't I? I want to say 9. This is why you should always look stuff up. It's 10, and they are Mark of Chaos Undivided, which means they can re-roll this if necessary, or the champion can, because the champion's still alive and he's got the Mark of Chaos Undivided. So 10 or less, that's a 7, so they're fine. They're not going to fall back. So on the whole, not as successful as I would have wanted that to be. I was kind of hoping that between all of this lot, they could have cleared out the Terminators. But it just goes to show how tough Terminators were. Even though they were only 1 wound back in 3rd edition, they were really tough and difficult to shake. Right, assault phase. Warp Spiders going to assault into the Bloodletters. See, now this is one of those situations, I think, where having some models on 25mm bases and some on 32mm bases affects things, because if these Bloodletters were on 25mm bases, probably wouldn't have got quite so many Warp Spiders in. I don't know. Anyway, so we've got the Exarch in base to base and 2 of the other Warp Spiders in base to base. Right, let's work out who's rolling what dice. Right, so this over here translates into this with dice, and I've gone 3-dimensional because, I don't know, it just felt like easier. I don't particularly want to try and balance 3 d8s on top of each other though. So Azaman is going to go first, 3 attacks at initiative 7. Then we've got the Warp Spider Exarch. He gets 2 attacks base plus 2 for charging in, because he's got the surprise assault or surprise attack. Surprise assault, I was right the first time. Exarch power, which gives him and his unit plus 2 attacks when they charge instead of plus 1. So he gets 2 attacks base plus the extra 2. And then we've got two other Warp Spiders who are in base-to-base contact. They get 1 attack each plus an extra 2 because they charged with the Exarch. And then you've got 1 at the back who's not in base-to-base contact. Very quickly coming back to Azaman, he is going to select this Bloodletter here, who he's in base-to-base contact with, to lose an attack. And there was no way I was going to try and do that on camera, because I'd knock all my dice over. So yeah, and then we've got Dire Avengers, 2 Dire Avengers in base-to-base contact with 1 attack each at initiative 5. And then Bloodletters, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in base-to-base contact with 2 attacks each, but one of them has been reduced to 1. And then we've got 2 Bloodletters who are not in base-to-base contact. Right, so I don't know if I'm a fan of the 3D element or not. Let's start rolling some dice. Azaman hitting first on 3s with a re-roll. That's 2 hits, wounding on 4s, 1 wound, 5 up invulnerable save because of it being a demon. No, that is a dead Bloodletter. And I've just double checked the rules for who decides which casualties to remove. Because if it's the Eldar get to choose, totally removing one of the Bloodletters that's currently got 2 attacks. But it says the player who is suffering the casualties gets to remove one. So you have to remove one that's in base to base, so I'm going to remove the one that's had its attacks reduced down to 1. Now we've got the Warp Spider Exarch with his Power Blades. Just double checking that, yeah, Power Blades just give him power weapons basically, don't give him any extra attacks. So this will be 4 attacks, weapon skill 5 against weapon skill 4, so winning on 3s. Everything hit. Strength 3 against toughness 4, so winning on 5s. That's 1 wound. Power weapons would ordinarily cut straight through armour, but Demon's invulnerable save of 5+ saves. Well, I've got to be honest, that was a bit of an anticlimax. And I can't see any reason to not do the Warp Spiders and the Dire Avengers all at the same time, because they're exactly the same stat profile. Weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 4, hitting on 4s. Wounding on 5s. Typically 1 fell on the floor, but that's definitely 1 wound so far. Let's just quickly re-roll that one. No, 1 wound, 5 up save, fails. So that's another dead demon. So these are the remaining attacks from the Bloodletters. So we've got 4 attacks going into the Dire Avengers, which will hit on 4s. That's all of them. Winning on 2s, strength 5, toughness 3, that's 4 6s. Right, 4 up armour saves. No, that's the last 2 Dire Avengers killed off. And then these last 2 attacks will be going into Aziman. 1 hit, doesn't wound. So it's another draw, 2 fatalities apiece. So now we need a tiebreaker roll off. The Eldar win. So Bloodletters are leadership 10, but they're currently outnumbered by their opponents by 1. So that reduces their leadership down to 9. And that's a pass on a 4. So the Bloodletters holding steady. Both sides have got models that are not in base to base, so quickly roll off to see who moves them in first. The Eldar will move in first again, and with various shufflings around, then everything is now in base to base contact. And again, I can see why in 4th edition they just simply said if you're within 2 inches of a model that's in base to base, you get your full attacks. Yeah, I think it's just simpler. Certainly would have sped things up rather than working out who's in base to base and how many attacks have you got and that thing. Yeah, and the pile-in moves afterwards in 4th edition is a bit slicker as well. So I'm hopefully not talking myself into going with 4th edition again, because I quite like 3rd edition. Anyway, that's that. That will be the end of the Eldar turn. And they haven't cleared their lines, but they're certainly giving themselves a little bit of breathing space. However, there are still 3 Terminators there, and a whole bunch of Chaos Space Marines coming in, plus a unit of Demons that hasn't yet joined the battle. As we go into Chaos Space Marines turn 4. Just finished editing turn 3 and realised one minor mistake, which was this guy's got a power weapon, not a power fist. So when he was attacking the Dire Avenger, he should have gone before the other Terminators, but in the grand scheme of things it didn't make any difference. Right, Wordbearers movement phase. So the main body of the Wordbearers force has moved forwards at 6 inches. And when stuff can only move 6 inches, it takes quite a while to get anywhere. Note to self, get some rhinos for your word bearers. Right, and then over here the Terminators have turned round in answer to the threat that's come from behind them with the fire dragons. So just a reminder, there is still a one-shot flamer on that Terminator, and the heavy flamer is still within the squad. So that will be the end of the movement phase. Going into the shooting phase, and I need to check line of sight for the Dreadnought, but other than that I think it is only the Terminators that will be shooting. Now it is pushing it a little bit, but I think there is line of sight from the Dreadnought through to the Wave Serpent, apart from the fact that a Wave Serpent's side armour is 12 and a heavy bolter is only strength 5, so wouldn't be able to penetrate. So just the Terminators. So the heavy flamer and the one-shot flamer from the Terminators, both of them will hit everything with the exception of these 2 Warlocks at the back. So even the Farseer and this Warlock will be engulfed in the flames. For these wound rolls I'm going to make some of them separately because of differing armour saves and things. So these are the 4 fire dragons that are currently sat under the template, and we're going with the heavy flamer first. So this is strength 5 against toughness 3, so winning on 2s, and all of those wound. AP 4, so we'll cut straight through the armour. I'm reasonably certain that fire dragons are not immune to flamer attacks, but I will just double check. No, they're not. And then same for the Exarch, but the Exarch will get a 3-up armour save if he gets wounded. He is wounded. He makes a save. So So this is against the heavy flamer. Let's do the regular flamer while we're at it. So this will wound on a 3. Doesn't wound. So the Exarch is safe. Good. The Warlock is wounded by the heavy flamer. He will get a 4+ rune armor save, which passes. And then will get wounded by the regular flamer, the one-shot flamer. He does indeed. And he gets 4 up armor save for this, which he passes. Now for the Farseer from the heavy flamer, is wounded. 4 up armor save, or rather rune armor save, is passed. Then the regular flamer is strength 4, toughness 3, so that does not wound. Right, so could have been a lot worse. But 4 fire dragons have been killed. Fire dragons are leadership 9 down to leadership 8 because less than 50% of starting strength. That is a 10. I don't think the Farseer can do anything about that. I'm not sure. Let me just double check. No. So the Fire Dragon Exarch is going to flee. 10 inches. So by the time he runs around these guys, he will be off the table. He won't stop to make a last chance regroup because they're at less than 50% strength. That's the Fire Dragon's gone. Youch. On the one hand, that makes me really sad because I really like my Fire Dragons. I'm really pleased with the paint job that I did for them. On the other hand, it's my own stupid fault for putting 2 flamers into them. Right, okay, that was the shooting phase. On to the assault phase. Is the unit of Plague Demons going to come in? They're all the wrong colour green dice. Yes, they are finally going to turn up. So doing it right this time. Template is in base contact with a friendly model. Does it scatter? No, it lands bang on target. Right, Nurgle Demons coming in. And just like that, they have arrived into the... Well, it's already the assault phase because that happens at the beginning of the assault phase. The Nurgle Demons will assault the Warp Spiders. That's going to be one messy combat over there. And then the Terminators are, if they're in range, going to assault the Farseer and his bodyguard unit. And it looks like this. The Terminators were within 5 inches of the Farseer and the Warlocks. And it was really easy for the Plague Bearers to get in here, but only minimal numbers in base-to-base contact. Right. I think we have to resolve this one first. Terminators against the Farseer. So the dice look a bit like this. Farseer gets 1 attack. He's got a singing spear which has to be used 2-handed. There is a Warlock in combat in base-to-base contact with a Terminator, again with a singing spear, so only gets 1 attack. And the other 2 Warlocks, who would have got an extra attack for having a close combat weapon and a pistol, are not in base-to-base, so they only get 1 attack each. So the Spirit Seer is going first at initiative 5, the Warlocks are at initiative 4, the Aspiring Champion from the Terminators is also at initiative 4 with his power weapon, not power fist, and he gets 2 attacks base plus 1 for charging. And then there's another Terminator with a power fist, so fighting last in base-to-base combat contact with 2 attacks base plus 1 for charging. And then the other Terminator with a power fist is not in base-to-base, so only gets 1 attack, effectively at initiative 1. So the Farseer going first, weapon skill 5 against weapon skill 4, so hitting on 3s, that's a hit. Singing Spear always wounds on a 2+, does wound, doesn't affect AP in any way, so 2 up armor save, 2 up armor save, which is passed. So then we'll do the Warlocks, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s because weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 4. No hits. Wait. Enhance. One of the Warlocks has got Enhance, which gives +1 weapon skill, which means they are weapon skill 5 against weapon skill 4, so those 2 3s do hit. Witchblades and Singing Spears. Haven't separated them out because it doesn't make any difference. They both wound on a 2+, and both of those wound. 2 up armor saves, 1 fail. So now the question is, which Terminator do I remove? The Heavy Flamer or the Champion? That's a really awkward decision. I think it's got to be the Champion. I mean, they're leadership 10, so that's they're unlikely to fail the leadership test, and the Champion allows them to re-roll that. But the Heavy Flamer does a lot more damage, and if this is going to turn into an ongoing combat, the Eldar will be going first anyway. No, I think it makes sense actually to keep the Champion for the reroll of leadership test in case they lose this combat. Yeah, rightly or wrongly, I've taken off the Heavy Flamer. Right, Champion will get fight. He will hit on 4s, or shall we go straight for the... He's in base-to-base contact with the Farseer, so let's go into the Farseer. So he will hit on 4s. That's 2 hits. He will wound on 3s, neither of which wound. That Farseer, very, very fortunate. And then the 1 attack from the other Terminator with a Power Fist, we will put that into the Farseer because we might insta-kill him if he fails an invulnerable save. He's hit. He will kill on a 2+, barring an invulnerable save. That's a 6. Farseer gets a 4-up invulnerable save, which is failed. Pretty sure I can't re-roll that in any way, shape or form. Nope. So I think that's the Farseer dead, because it's strength 8 against toughness 3, so the strength of the weapon is double the toughness. He's failed his invulnerable save, so that is instant death to the Farseer. Technically this combat is a draw because it's 1 wound inflicted each, although technically 3 on the Farseer, but only 1 wound was actually inflicted. So it's a drawn combat. So tiebreaker. The Eldar win, but it's very much a moral victory. So the Terminators now have to take a leadership test. They are below half their starting strength, so their leadership goes from 10 to 9. They are outnumbered, so it goes from 9 to 8. And that's a 6. So they stay to fight on. And there will now be pile-in moves, because both sides have got models that are not in base-to-base contact. And the Terminators will move first. And it looks like that after pile-in moves. Right, onto this monstrosity. I've had to get some different dice because it was messing with my head as I was laying them out, because none of the Eldar in there are green. You've got Azaman, who is blue. You've got the Warp Spiders, who are white and red and black. And then we've got Khorne Demons, which are red, black and brass. And then we've got Nurgle Demons that are pale, sickly green. So, yeah, I've got some of the dice. Azaman will go first, followed by the Warp Spider Exarch, followed by the Warp Spiders, who are now down to 1 attack each, with the Exarch down to 2 attacks because they haven't charged. Then all of the demons will go at the same initiative, initiative 4. One of the demons will have an attack negated by Azaman's distractibility. Yeah, so let's roll some dice. See, it's for reasons like this you can never have too many dice. Right, Azaman, 3 attacks. I'm using blue and white dice because Azaman is blue and white. We'll hit on 3s with a reroll. He hits all 3 times. He will wound on 4s. This is into bloodletters, by the way. They're the only ones he's in base-to-base contact with. He only wounds once. 5 up invulnerable save from a bloodletter. He saves it. Seriously, Azaman, very much underperforming. Warp Spider Exarch into bloodletters, hitting on 3s with 2 attacks. Both hit. Wounding on 5s, strength 3, toughness 4. 1 wound. These are power blades, but still got 5 up invulnerable save, and that's a dead demon. So again, taking off the one that's had its number of attacks removed. 3 warp spiders hitting on 4s into bloodletters. No hits. Going to do the bloodletters next. We've got 2 of them in base-to-base contact with Aziman, 1 of them in base-to-base contact with the warp spider Exarch. So going into Aziman, hitting on 4s, 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, strength 5, toughness 4. 3 wounds. 3 up invulnerable saves. That's cocked, but it looks like it would definitely have been a 6. It saves anyway. 1 failed wound. Now I need to check how many wounds Aziman's got. Phoenix Lords have 3 wounds, so 2 remaining for Aziman. The other bloodletter into the warp spider's Exarch will hit on 4s. That's 1 hit. Wounding on 2s. That is a wound. 3 up armor save. Passes. And finally the plague bearers going into the warp spiders will hit on 4s. That's only 2 hits. Strength 4 because plague bearers get an extra pip of toughness, whereas bloodletters get an extra pip of strength. So strength 4, toughness 3, wounding on 3s. That is 2 wounds. 4 up armor saves. That's 2 dead warp spiders. No, it's not. Warp spiders got 3 up armor. So that ongoing combat is yet another draw. 1 dead bloodletter and 1 wound inflicted on Aziman. So we need to do a roll off. That's cocked. That's a draw. So that is a draw. You don't re-roll the draw of a tiebreaker, it's just a flat out draw. And there was only the plague bearers that didn't have any models in base-to-base contact, so all of the Eldar are in base-to-base contact, so the plague bearers have moved slightly, getting 1 more into base-to-base contact. That's the end of the word bearer's turn. Going into Eldar, turn 4. Do the swooping hawks arrive on a 2+? Yes, they do. Better late than never. Or, you never know, they might be just in the nick of time. And as the swooping hawks come in, they drop a grenade harness right onto the biggest, baddest word bearer that they can see, aka the Demon Prince. So we place the 5-inch blast template and then roll for scatter. It's bang on target. So the lines, or the parallax I believe it's referred to, are a bit misleading. So obviously the Demon Prince is directly under the blast template. 2 of those Chaos Space Marines with close combat weapons are partially under, and none of this unit are even partly under the blast template. So the Demon Prince is hit automatically. The other 2 Chaos Space Marines will be hit on a 4+, and I'm using the blue dice because the Swooping Hawks are blue, albeit more turquoisey than these blue dice I've got. I've got some turquoise dice. No, carry on, Joe. No. So the 2 Chaos Space Marines are not hurt, or not hit by the shrapnel. This is strength 4, toughness 4, so wounding on 4s. That's not a wound. Okay, so bit of a non-event in the end, but it was fun. Now let's land the Swooping Hawks. Rightly or wrongly, I think the Swooping Hawks need to be trying to do something about all of this, because that Aziman and those warp spiders are having a hard enough job as it is trying to stave off those demons, and there's Terminators at the back as well, without, if all of these Chaos Space Marines eventually get in there, they're just going to get overwhelmed. So I think we need to try to draw some of the Chaos Space Marines fire. So they're going to come in over here, so that's where they intend to land, and they land bang on target. So they've landed, and the Wave Serpent has turned and moved less than 6 inches, so that, heavy shuriken fire can go into these Chaos Space Marines as well. So the Swooping Hawks continuing their mission to try to assassinate the Demon Prince. So the Exarch has got a Hawk's Talon, I think that's what it's called, yeah. So he gets, this is an assault weapon. If I'd have realised they were assault weapons, I'd have put the Swooping Hawks further back. I thought they were rapid fire, should have always checked these things before you do it. They're assault weapons with 24-inch range. Right, never mind, mistakes were made. You live and learn. Hopefully these Swooping Hawks will live and learn. The Exarch gets 3 shots with his weapon and he will be hitting on 2s. That's only 1 miss. Strength 4, toughness 4, wounding on 4s. That's a wound. 3 up demonic armour save. Is a pass. Then 8 shots from Las Blasters coming in, hitting on 3s. Oh, that's not so good. 3 wounds, wounding on, 3 hits, wounding on 5s. That's 1 wound. Another 3 up armour save. Oh, that's a fail. So the Demon Prince will take a wound. And I was umming and ahhing as to whether I should go for the Demon Prince or the Chaos Space Marines. And I figured, let's try to kill their warlords, seeing as they've killed ours. And as it happens, I think it would have been the exact same result, because he is basically Chaos Space Marine, toughness and armour. So we would have killed a Chaos Space Marine, but as it is, we've inflicted a wound on a Demon Prince. The Wave Serpent is going to shoot at that unit of Close Combat Marines. Could it shoot at the Demon Prince? I want to say yes it can. Yeah, I think that's a clear line of sight to the Demon Prince. Right, let's try and shoot the Demon Prince. So we've got a Shuriken Cannon, which is heavy 3. That's 2 hits, hitting on 3s. And then there's a twin-linked Shuriken Cannon, which is heavy 3, but re-rolling misses, like that one. So that's a total of 5 hits. Strength 5 or 6. Strength 6. I promise you I did check these, but it's just one of those things that slipped out of my mind. Strength 6 against toughness 4, so wounding on 2s. There's 2 1s. But there are 3 wounds, so this will be 3 demon armour saves of 3+. It's 2 fails. The Demon Prince is slain by Shuriken Cannon fire from the Wave Serpent. Because it's already taken 1, it's only had 3 to start with. Well, there we go. Assault phase. There'll be no fresh assaults, because there ain't no way on this earth those Swooping Hawks are going to charge into some close combat orientated Chaos Space Marines. So ongoing combats, I think we'll do this one first with the Terminators and the Warlocks. So 2 Warlocks with Witchblades and Shuriken Pistols are in base-to-base contact with an enemy model, so they get an extra attack, 1 base plus 1 for having close combat weapon and pistol. Sirens going along in the background, I don't know if you can hear them. Increase to initiative 5 because of Enhance. One of the Warlock's powers is boosting the weapon skill and initiative of the unit. And then there's the other Warlock with a spear, which has to be used two-handed, so only gets 1 attack in spite of having a pistol as well. And so all of that's at initiative 5. Then the Terminator Champion, Aspiring Champion, 2 attacks at initiative 4, and then the other Terminator with a Power Fist, 2 attacks at initiative 1, effectively, fights last. Right, so we can do all of the Warlock attacks together because effectively everything is the same profile. So we'll be hitting on 3s, there's 2 misses. Always wounding on 2s, Witchblades and Singing Spears wound on 2s. So that's 3 wounds. 2 up armour saves. That's a dead Terminator. And now the quandary again of which one do I remove? I think I removed the champion this time. Yep, remove the champion because if this combat somehow keeps going, either Terminator will not be fighting before the Warlocks, but the Terminator with the Power Fist has got the better chance of winning, so he'll be winning on 2s, whereas the other Terminator with his Power Weapon would have been winning on 3s. Right, so 2 attacks from said Terminator with Power Fist. That's only 1 hit. Winning on a 2, that's a wound. 4 up invulnerable save, that's a pass. So need to quickly work out the leadership. So the Terminators are leadership 10. -1 for being below 50% strength is down to 9. Minus another 3 for being outnumbered 3 to 1 takes down to 6. This is where I'm going to wish I'd kept the champion to re-roll the leadership. That's a 9. Are Terminators immune to fear? Don't think they are. No, I can't see anything that says that basic Chaos Terminators are immune to fear. They certainly know fear. In fact, one of the rules in this particular version of the Codex is, I think it's called traitorous, so it specifically says Chaos Space Marines do not qualify for the they shall know no fear special rule that Imperial Space Marines get because they are corrupted. Maybe that's what it's called, it might be called corrupted. Either way, this Terminator is going to fall back 2d6 inches. No, I think it has to fall back 3 inches. No, it's only consolidating where they can only move 3 inches. Fall back, they do have to move the entire distance from what I can see. So we've rolled an 8. Do the Warlocks catch them on an 8 or more? Is it 8 or more? Well, let's roll the dice. That's a 7, so we don't catch the Terminator. We do pursue him though. So they're going to advance after the Terminator. So that Terminator's got a long way to go to fall back. And there's enemy units in the way? No, they're all engaged in combat. Anyway, that is that combat sorted. Now we've got this big ongoing combat around the objective. So just cut straight to the results of the combat. Azaman killed 2 Bloodletters, and the Plague Bearers killed one of the Warp Spiders. The Warp Spider Exarch and the other Warp Spiders did nothing to the demons. So that is a win in terms of a round of combat for the Eldar. They're hanging in there, so then we need to make some leadership tests. The Bloodletters are in quite a bad way, but collectively they're not outnumbered, so they are leadership 9 at the moment. That's a 5, so they pass. And the Plague Bearers are leadership 10. Oh, nearly. That's a 7, so Nurgle's number. The Plague Bearers are sticking around because I believe that when it's multiple combats like that, you rather than working out each individual unit, it's the collective number of models, he says, now doubting himself and thinking, need to go and check the book. Yeah, I'm sticking to my guns on the basis that collectively the demons are on the same side of the combat and the Eldar are on the other side. So I think I've done that right. So there are Plague Bearers that are not in base-to-base contact, but yeah, models cannot move anywhere to get into base-to-base contact. So that combat carries on as it was. Tell a lie, Azaman wasn't in base-to-base contact, so he has moved into base-to-base contact with Plague Bearers. So that is the end of Eldar Term 4. So they have managed to get some breathing space in by virtue of the fact that they've managed to push back the Terminators. There's only one Terminator left, and that is falling back. They have assassinated the enemy warlord, and this ongoing battle of attrition here, yeah, it's still anybody's guess how that's going to go. They may just have the best of it. Who'd have thought Eldar in close combat having the best of it? I've talked it up now, but it's going to be an ongoing grind, and those Chaos Space Marines getting very, very close. Now it's variable mission length, so now we need to roll to see if there's going to be a turn 5. So I need to grab a dice. Going to use one of my Zinchian dice. Let's leave it up to the the Lord of Fates, the Changers of the Ways, to see if there's going to be a turn 5 on a 2+. Yes, there is. That's a 4. Turn 5 for the Word Bearers coming up. In the Word Bearers movement phase, the last remaining Terminator has continued to fall back 7 inches. The Dreadnought and these 2 units of Chaos Space Marines have continued to move forwards. They're 6 inches. This unit of ranged weapon equipped Chaos Space Marines has stood still, ready to fire at the Swooping Hawks, and the other unit of close combat equipped Chaos Space Marines has moved towards the Swooping Hawks, ready to try to assault, depending on how effective the fire from these Chaos Space Marines is. Speaking of which, going into the shooting phase. Yep, and that patch of empty ground there represents where the Swooping Hawks fell. The ranged weapons took out all bar the Exarch, and then the Chaos Champion, the aspiring champion from that unit of close combat troops, finished him off with a plasma pistol shot, the Exarch. So yeah, definitely should have dropped them in further back. But you live and learn. It's the first time really using the Swooping Hawks properly in 3rd edition. Don't think there's much else to be shot at, because we know that the Dreadnought's heavy bolter can't hurt the Wave Serpent, and I'm also going to say it can't see the Warlocks. I'll have to check line of sight rules, but yeah, certainly nothing else can see to shoot, so I'll just check the line of sight rules to see if the Dreadnought can see the Warlocks. And yes, it can. Narrowest of narrow margins, but it can see the Warlocks. So first of all, Fire Frenzy. It shoots normally with a twin-linked heavy bolter. All 3 hit. Wounding on 2s. 2 wounds. I've only got the blue dice to hand from when I was doing the Swooping Hawks. And that is a dead Warlock. Leadership test on the Warlocks, they're leadership 8. The unit is not yet below 50% strength, it's at 50% strength. So 8 or more, 8 or less, that's a 6. So the Warlocks are not going to fall back. And that will be the end of the turn. Note, there's the ongoing combat. There's no new assaults. That's what I should have said. There's no new assaults because there's no route for the Dreadnought to get through to any enemy models. Pretty sure it can't squeeze through that gap to get to that Exarch. Might have to double check. There is. The Demon Prince is there for illustrative purposes only, but it's the same size base and it can get through, and from the front of the Demon Prince's base to the front of the Dreadnought's base is just under 6 inches. So the Dreadnought can indeed charge into the Warp Spider Exarch. But that's not what I want it to do. I want it to keep going, chugging up, so because at the moment that's about the only thing that can, with any degree of ease at least, take on the Wave Serpent. I've lost all my other anti-tank. The Chaos Space Marines have got crack grenades. Yeah, so I think the Dreadnought is not going to chug it in here. It's got its eyes set on this big target straight in front of it. So this is the end of that combat. No casualties inflicted by the Eldar. However, 2 Warp Spiders, one of which was the Exarch, have been killed by the demons. So the demons won that particular combat. These are the leadership rolls, leadership tests. Azaman rolled a 7, the remaining Warp Spider rolled a 10. You could argue that because Azaman is in coherency with the Warp Spider, they're in the same unit, in which case the Warp Spider can use Azaman's leadership. However, either way, it's still a fail because they are outnumbered 4-1, and Azaman's leadership is 10. So -4 to his leadership because of being outnumbered 4-1, and also for being below 50% starting strength as a combined unit. Yeah, that's 6, so it's still a fail. 6 down to 5, so it's still a fail even on a 7. So they need to fall back. the warp spider rolls 3 dice. I want to get another dice just so I can do it all the right colour. The warp spider is going to fall back 7 inches. Azaman, technically part of the unit, but I think, yeah, he needs to... I don't know how this works. I think officially Azaman is not part of the unit because you need to move into contact with them during the movement phase, the rules say. So I'm going to treat them as 2 separate units. It's just easier that way. Azaman's going to fall back 11 inches. Plague Marines are going to try and pursue the warp spider. And they catch it on a 10. Yeah, so the rules say it moves directly towards the base edge, and then the crossfire rule comes in, so effectively he's jumped that way, but it's been pursued, he gets caught and taken down. The bloodletter is going to pursue Azaman. Doesn't quite catch him on 9, but it does depend on where Azaman's going. So I really am taking this literally, but it feels the right thing to do and feels in the spirit of the rules. So Azaman has to fall directly back towards his own baseline. So he will then go through an enemy unit, which means he is destroyed. So to me, all of that feels right. So the warp spider jumps, but then still gets caught by the plague bearers. Azaman then has to fall back directly towards his baseline, which means he has to go through an enemy unit, which means he gets caught and cut down because of the crossfire rule. I'm pretty sure I've done that right. And the bloodletter should have followed him and stopped when it got to the plague bearers. Thusly. So now that leaves the Eldar with a wave serpent and 2 warlocks. I think it's safe to say that the Eldar are not going to win this. We're at the end of their shooting phase. So in the movement phase, the wave serpent has moved forwards to get a little bit closer to the objective and turned and fired all of its shuriken cannons into the plague bearers, killing 2 of them. The 2 warlocks fired in at the plague bearers, so the one with the singing spear, through the singing spear, it failed to wound on a 2+, it rolled a 1, and the shuriken pistol from the other one fired in and again hit but failed to wound. So now the question is, do the warlocks go charging in there to try to kill them? They won't kill all of them, but they might whittle them down, but they're probably going to get cut down in return. I think it's a death or glory moment. So you may have noticed I'm getting through just playing the game and then telling you what's happened in an effort to speed things up. So these are the dice that I've just rolled for the hit rolls for the 2 warlocks. 3 2s from this guy, the one with the pistol and the sword. 2 2s from the guy with the spear, gets an extra attack because he charged. That's 5 2s, that's a Yahtzee of 2s. And I didn't film it, so you're just going to have to believe me that that is indeed what happened. Plague Marines killed a warlock. The last remaining warlock needs to take a leadership test. A 6. I think that's going to be a fail. They're leadership 8. They are outnumbered 4 to 1, so that gets reduced to a 4. They're below 50% starting strength, so that gets reduced to a 3. So yeah, a 6 is definitely a fail. So they're going to fall back 6 inches. Can the Plague Bearers catch them? Statistically, it's likely. 56% of getting a 7 or more. That's an 11. So that just leaves the Wave Serpent on the table. Now, on a 3+, there will be another turn. If it's a 1 or a 2, the Eldar will win, because that will be the end of the game, and the Eldar have got an undamaged vehicle next to the objective. The Terminator can't claim the objective because it's falling back. The Bloodletter can't claim the objective because it is below 50% starting strength. So yeah, the closest eligible unit to the objective is the Wave Serpent. So on a 1 or a 2, the Eldar will win. That's a 1. And I promise you, I have not made this up. I have not fudged any rolls. It's all genuine rolls. Everything is completely above board and honest. So with just a Wave Serpent left, the Eldar win. Yep, mission objective. The player that controls the objective at the end of the game wins the battle. To control the objective, you must have the closest unit to the objective at the end of the game. Immobilized vehicles or units of bikes, cavalry or infantry with more than 50% casualties cannot control the objective. It is a win for the Eldar. Yeah, who'd have thunk it? I'm almost lost for words. So I don't think anybody expected this game to go that way. I think it's a win on a technicality, but the technicality is they've satisfied the win conditions. Yeah, so Eldar. It didn't help particularly that I cocked up the demon summoning mechanics, and yeah, got the demons in the wrong place. That might have changed things slightly, but I think if you really wanted to do this in a gamey way, and you knew that your opponent didn't have any transports, you could move this objective slightly further back, so it has to be 12 inches away from a table edge. So I just wanted it to be in the centre of the eligible strip of battlefield that it could be in. That seemed like the fair thing to do. And yeah, I don't have any transports for my word bearers at the minute, so summoning in deep striking units of Terminators and Demons seemed a logical way to offset that. But I mean, those Terminators did work. Yeah, so completely took out most of... They took out most of a Dire Avengers unit, the big unit of Dire Avengers. All bar one of the... they did eventually finish them off in close combat. The Fire Dragons, the Farseer, yeah, those Terminators did some real work. And then the Demons turning into a tar pit around here. Like I say, technically the Bloodletters should not have landed there. But they would have finished off that last Dire Avenger who was over here, and then eventually got stuck in over there. So I don't think the outcome was hugely erroneous. Warlords falling on both sides. The Demon Prince getting taken out by the Swooping Hawks. Like I say, I should really... I try to check things before I press the record button, I promise you I do. But there's so much going on in these games. The rules are quite complicated. It's really difficult when you're playing solo to keep everything in your head, especially for two different armies. So yeah, if I'd have realised or twigged that the Swooping Hawk's weapons were assault weapons, I probably would have dropped them in further back, so they might have lasted slightly longer then, but I thought they were rapid fire, so that's why I've dropped them in close enough to yeah, to make sure they could get some shots in. And I was originally intending to shoot these Chaos Space Marines, but then when I thought, actually, the Warlord looks like he's in range, let's try and assassinate the Demon Prince, which part of me was a bit sad about. I wanted to see what the Demon Prince could do. Definitely going to have to use another game of Word Bearers so I can see what the Demon Prince is like in combat. Slightly disappointed we didn't get to see more of the Dreadnought as well. So yeah, it's just one of those missions, I think, where some of the missions in the book feel like they are a bit unbalanced. There's one in particular, Meat Grinder, and I will definitely be filming that. But that's basically an uphill struggle for whoever is the attacker, because the victory condition is the attacker needs to table the opponent. And if you don't table the opponent, it's a win for the opponent. It's a win for the defender if they don't get tabled. So yeah, I'll probably do that one at some point. But this one in particular, again, feels like it could be a similar thing. It's an uphill slog for the attacker. Definitely needs some speed. So probably another one to do where there's a faster opponent. Possibly my Death Guard. My Death Guard have got Rhinos and a Land Raider. Yeah, trying to think of what else that I've got that's fairly fast. Imperial Guard, possibly. They've got some armour. They've got the Chimeras. Yeah, so it could be interesting with different armies. But definitely getting lucky with those Terminators coming in straight away on turn 2 and wreaking havoc at the back, and then the demons coming in early as well. That made a huge difference. And it took a little bit of a while for the Eldar reinforcements to arrive, the reserves to arrive, and they made quite a difference when they did. I was really disappointed my fire dragons didn't take out those Terminators more effectively. But yeah, it is what it is. I enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun, especially the unexpected twist at the end. Definitely enjoyed this more than the last game on a personal level. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it too. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Please continue to like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, God bless.